Okay, with the battery in place and the anemometer connected, we're basically going to put this cover back on. And again, we sort of carefully put this to the side, being careful not to stretch the wires. Then we put the cover on. Be careful you don't pinch the wires between the cover plate and the actual control box. Once the battery is connected, our business inside the control box should be over. And we'll start working on adding the sensor arm. Okay. So this is the sensor arm. These are the brackets that are holding the optical gate devices in place. This is the junction box, where we're going to make the electrical connections once we add this to the control box. One thing to note is that at each level, there are two optical gate devices, the front one and the back one. And then in this particular case, we have 3 levels, 1, 2, 3, where we have optical gate devices. This is a slot type channel. This is sort of the cross section that you can see. And you see that there's a slot through there, and there are actually slots on all 4 sides. And what we're going to do is we're going to slide a piece of metal that is attached to the control box into the slot and then snug up the screws. So this is how this works. You'll need the Allen wrench for this. What you'll see is on the back side of this post is this, what they call it, a nut, but it's basically a plate that has 2 holes in it that's going to slide in. And I can illustrate from over here how that works. So you kind of push up against the screws in the back so that there's a little bit of a gap between the plate and the post. And then you slowly slide this in. And it's a little easier to do on its side, but I would like to demonstrate to you how that works. So there we go. So now we're slid in on one and slid in on the other. I'm just going to snug this slightly so it doesn't fall out when I move it to the side. Okay. So moving this to the side like so. You can see that there are 2 hex screws, and all you want to do is tighten them. First snug them a little bit, and then you'll need to tighten them. Do not over tighten them. Basically what you want is you want this fixture to be quite stiff, but you don't want to tighten too much because you don't want to crush this shaft. And you might have to alternate between one and the other. So tighten there, tighten there. All right, so this is nice and snug and it's not going to go anywhere. Great. So that's the mechanical linkage. Next we have to complete the electrical linkage. One thing I want to draw to your attention before we do that is that the umbilical that's coming out of the control box actually has 4 connectors, because we have the capacity to log from 4 different OGD sensors. And you'll notice that they are all different lengths. You have the short one, next shortest one, and then the next shortest one, and of course you have the longest one. And that becomes important because there's a convention with the way these are connected. It'll be difficult to see perhaps once I'm inside the box, but the shortest one is going to connect to the lowest numbered port. And I'll show you what that means. I'll go ahead and remove the screw cover. What you see is that there's junction ports with 4 lettered connections and 4 numbered connections. And this umbilical, these connectors are going to go into the 4 numbered connections. The 4 lettered connections are connected to the optical gate devices. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to send these through one by one because the hole isn't big enough for all of them to go through at the same time. Obviously, you start with the longest one, you send that through, and the next longest one. And I'm just going to move this out of the way a little bit gently. And the next longest one, and then finally the shortest one. And we'll just take this through gently, just like that. All right, so one thing that we have here is we have a way of retaining this in place. And that's just a little clip, plastic clip that's screwed in. I'll bring it up so you can see it. And it looks like this. So it's just a little cylinder, and there's a screw, and that screw then attaches to the inside of the box. So you just go ahead and wrap that around the main cord, just like that, and then you just screw that in so that it doesn't jiggle around inside the box too much. It's a little bit, there you go, with a little bit of patience, it's not that difficult to do. Okay, so now what we said is we're going to look at the shortest wire, which is this one, and connect it to the lowest number, which is number 1. And we may make sure we feel it click. The next shortest one goes to number 2. And then we check to see this is the next shortest one. And this goes to number 3. And the longest one goes to number 4. Okay, so now we've electrically connected the control box with the sensors. This is an important point, however. So what we have is we have 6 sensors, because remember we have 2 sensors at each of these levels, and we only have 4 ports in which to log the data. So what that means is that you have to choose which of these sensors are being logged, specifically which 4 are being logged. So the question is, how do you identify which sensor is being connected to which port? And here too we use the convention of the shortest. It's a little bit difficult to see, but inside of this junction box, the sensor that is furthest away from the junction box has the shortest umbilical cord, which is this wrapped braided material. And then the sensor that's closest obviously has the longest one, right? Because there's less distance to travel. And then the same convention applies. The front sensor within the umbilical, the front sensor, so for example, let's take these 2. I'll disconnect them from here, A and B. The sensor that's in the front is shorter because it's further away from the junction box, and the sensor that's in the back is a little bit longer. So in this case, this is actually the shortest umbilical corresponding to the furthest away set of sensors, and then this is the shortest of the 2 connecting wires, which corresponds to the front sensor at that level. So I'm going to connect that to A in this case. I'm going to connect the back sensor to B. And the other 2 sensors, of course, it's up to you how you want to do it, but typically what makes sense is to connect the front sensor on the 2nd level and then the front sensor on the 3rd level, and then see how that goes. I'm just going to go ahead and close this up. All right, so at this point, we've completed the assembly. And next what we have to do is check to see that the instrument is working and then install it in the field.